Allow me to reintroduce myself.
Welcome to Game Time with Hubb, your all-access pass to the hottest stories in football, basketball, boxing, and wrestling. Whether it's game-winning touchdowns, buzzer beaters, knockout punches, or jaw-dropping suplexes, we've got it all covered. He's your host, Hubb.
Yo, welcome back to Game Time with Hubb, your home for football, basketball, boxing, and wrestling. Today we're breaking down the 2025 season preview. So glad football is back. Kickoff is Thursday, Philadelphia Eagles versus the Dallas Cowboys. Listen, today we're going to go division by division, starting in the AFC, then we're going to move over to the NFC. Hey, listen, ain't nothing to do but to do it, and let's kick things off in the AFC East. Let's go. Opening up with the Buffalo Bills here. The Super Bowl of bust, for the Bills. Josh Allen is coming off an MVP season. The roster is stacked. But until they break through in January, regular season dominance won't mean much. The pressure is on in Western New York. Now let's slide down to South Beach here. We got the Miami Dolphins. Now look, 2 years ago, the Miami Dolphins had the most explosive offense in football. Now, man, that shine is wearing off. You got Tua's health is a constant question. The defense has holes. And Mike McDaniels, look, that brother's seat is heating up, man. If things go south early, it could get ugly real fast in South Beach. Moving back up north, we go to New England with the Patriots. New head coach Mike Vrabel, wasted no time in reshaping his team. Crazy cuts and everything. The offensive line is rebuilt. New weapons are in place, such as a Stephon Diggs. My question for that is, what Stephon Diggs are we going to get? We're going to get the Buffalo Bills version of Stephon Diggs, maybe even the Houston Texans version of Stephon Diggs before he got hurt. We know he's coming off an ACL tear injury. So how will he bounce back? Is he going to lose a step, or is he still going to be Stephon Diggs? That right there is a major question. The other major question is that quarterback. The hope up there in New England is that Drake May, he takes that big year 2 leap. Let's see what he's about. Like, if he's supposed to be the guy, let's see what's up. We know wide receiver is a huge need still in New England, even with Stephon Diggs. Because, like I said, he's coming off that ACL injury. You don't know which version of Stephon Diggs you're going to get. Is he going to be him, or is he going to be a shell of himself? We really don't know. That week 1 matchup against the Raiders, it's going to set the tone for the Patriots in this new era. Last but not least, in the East, we're going to look at the New York Jets. Now, look, Jets fans, Fireman Ed, look, they've been burned too many times, man. New head coach Aaron Glenn, brings fresh energy. Quarterback Justin Fields, he hasn't really inspired confidence as a passer. He can run the ball, but as a passer, it's kind of shaky over there. The defense and the run game are solid, but until that QB play improves, that ceiling is extremely limited over there. How much can that defense and run game carry them? 'Cause when you need the quarterback to deliver big time throws, is Justin Fields gonna be able to do that? That's something that we haven't seen, and maybe we'll see it this year. Who knows? But the ceiling over there in New York is limited. Now we're going to look into the AFC North, one of the tough divisions in football, black and blue division. Um, Kicking off with the Baltimore Ravens, right down 95. Look, this could be the Ravens' year. Lamar Jackson was MVP level again last year in 2024. I honestly thought he should have won the MVP, but with the Josh Allen, no discredit to Josh Allen. I just think Lamar Jackson had the better season. Baltimore brings in DeAndre Hopkins, veteran wide receiver. Pair him over there with Zay Flowers. You still got Mark Andrews over there. In the backfield, you still got King Henry back there running the ball. The defensive side of the ball is rising up, under defensive coordinator Zach Orr. He got them boys playing. Listen, If Lamar Jackson can stay healthy alongside this offense, like the major components, Baltimore might be the AFC's best Super Bowl bet. Thank it. Next up, we got Cincinnati going ahead with the Bengals. Ain't nothing much to be said. You got Joe Burrow, you got Jamar Chase, you got T. Higgins. Look, that trio, it should mean playoffs. But last season showed how fragile their roster can be. You know, they spent big to keep their stars, but didn't fix protection or defense. The talent is there, but patience is definitely wearing thin in Cincinnati. Moving up to the Steel City, you got Mike Tomlin with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look, Coach Tomlin, he keeps this team competitive. That hasn't had a losing season. But this year, the Steelers are banking on 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. If he can find some old magic, you know, Pittsburgh could make some noise. You got a good wide receiver up there with the newly acquired DK Metcalf up there. You know, they traded George Pickens to the Cowboys, but you replace that with DK Metcalf, you know, gives Aaron Rodgers, you know, weapons up there. Look, if this Pittsburgh, you know, Steelers, you know, experiment, if it don't work, you know, it could really backfire in a hurry. Last but not least, up here in the north, got the Cleveland Browns. Now look, the Browns won't be as bad as they was last year. Look, 3-14, man. Look, they was sorry. but their early schedule is brutal, man. Look, they playing 6 playoff teams right out the gate in 6 weeks. Um, if rookie Dylan Gabriel or Shador Sanders isn't starting by the bye, I think fans are gonna be calling in for a change, man. Good luck to Joe Flacco up there. He an old head too. Now, next up, man, I slide down to the AFC South. You know, breaking out with the Houston Texans. The Texans are back-to-back division champions. But the roster is taking some hits. You know, C.J. Stroud is still a guy up there. You know, but with Stephon Diggs going, he went to New England, and Tank Dell still recovering from injury. This offense isn't as scary as it was. They could still win the South, and I'm going to bet that they do win the South, but it'd be more by default than dominance based on whatever else, based on the other teams that are in the South. Speaking on the other teams, next up we got the Jacksonville Jaguars. Look, Trevor Lawrence got $275 million extension. You know, now he has to prove that he's worth it. New head coach and Liam Cohen. Look, he needs to elevate him into the same conversation as a Patrick Mahomes and a Josh Allen. Until that happens, the Jags, they won't be real contenders. They'd be real fun to watch with Travis Hunter over there playing, you know, both sides of the ball. But as far as contending, I don't see it. Next up is Indianapolis. Got the Colts. They're rolling out with Danny Dimes, bruh. Daniel Jones gets to start at quarterback for the Colts. But you know, GM Chris Ballard, you know, he's definitely on the hot seat. Mediocrity, you know, has been the story here for years for Indianapolis. You know, unless Danny Dimes somehow plays out his mind, which I doubt. Look, this could be the last ride for both Ballard and also for Shane Steichen. Um, Moving over here to the Tennessee Titans down here in Nashville, Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick. You know, it's finally giving Tennessee some hope at quarterback. Y'all do realize they ain't really have a franchise quarterback since like Steve McNair, really. That's crazy. This season right here for them, it isn't about wins, it's about growth. You know, the Titans have surrounded, you know, Cam Ward with vets and rookies. You know, they are looking to build towards the future. Now, let's head out west with the always exciting AFC West. We got the Kansas City Chiefs, man. They coming off a tough Super Bowl loss. They look, it was belt the ass out there, bro. The Chiefs are hungry this year. You know, Rashee Rice is back, but he's suspended for the first 6 games of the year. But look no further. You still got Hollywood Brown, and you also got second-year pro Xavier Worthy. You know, this dude is ready to shine, man. Mahomes and the Chiefs, you know, they're out to prove doubters wrong that this dynasty, it isn't over yet. Next up, we got the LA Chargers. Look, the Chargers loaded up around Justin Herbert. But losing that left tackle and Rashawn Slater, for the season is definitely a huge blow. Najee Harris, health is another concern for them. I don't know why dude's playing with fireworks. The 4th of July incident injured his eye. The Chargers are still going to compete, but knocking off Kansas City, it just feels unlikely. Hey, it is what it is. Shout out to Coach Harbaugh though. Moving over here to Denver with the Broncos. Now this is a team you can't sleep on in the West. Sean Payton got his offensive line intact. The defense added some big time talent. While players like Courtland Sutton and J.K. Dobbins, they don't like scare you, like give a defense nightmares. Sean Payton's system might maximize their production. This team right here with Bo Nix, man, it definitely could surprise some folks this year. Last but not least in the West, we got the Las Vegas Raiders. And Chip Kelly is running the offense. saying Chip Kelly in this area, it's kind of wild. I live in this Philadelphia area, and we all remember how Chip Kelly was with the Eagles, traded away Shady McCoy, but we just look another way. Deshaun Jackson, another story. But Chip Kelly's running this offense with Geno Smith, Brock Bowers, and rookie Aston Genty. So yeah, look, this team is going to put up some points. But the defense on the other side, they're young, but they're shaky. Expect plenty of shootouts up there in Vegas. All right. Now it's time to jump to the NFC. Starting with the always headline grabbing NFC East. Kicking off with the Philadelphia Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champions. Look, they had lost some pieces, but they also reloaded. Hurts, Barkley, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith, they're leading this offense. While they got a young defensive core over there that's ready to take over, that's led by arguably, in my opinion, the best interior defensive lineman in football, and Jalen Carter. Um, Repeating is going to be tough. It's always tough to repeat. Like every time you see, like we just seen what the Chiefs went through last season, even getting to the Super Bowl. Every team is going to give you your best shot week in and week out. Even teams you might think that you should blow out on paper, they come into play because you're the champs. But with this roster in Philadelphia, if I was going to put money on somebody to repeat, it'd be Philadelphia. They got the roster to do it. That roster is loaded. They do things right up in Philadelphia. Hey, we're going to see. Now let's head down 95 South, down here to Washington with the Commanders. Jaden Daniels, definitely the real deal. The reigning offensive rookie of the year. Now he has added Debo Samuel over there, Jeremy Tunsil over there to protect him. They had gave Terry McLaurin a contract extension, which was well deserved and well needed. The issue in Washington is they ain't got no real pass rush. Now I said this last year after they played the Eagles in the playoffs in the NFC Championship game. I said if they was to go get themselves a pass rush, this Washington Commanders team could really compete. And also can contend for a not only the NFC but for a Super Bowl. But they still have that hole there with no real pass rush. I mean, you signed Von Miller, but he's also an aging vet. He ain't the Von Miller from Denver. You know what I'm saying? So, Washington is definitely a good team. Don't get me wrong. But great, I don't see it yet. Moving over here to Dallas with the Cowboys. Oh man, look, trading away Michael Parsons was a huge mistake. I don't care how you flip it. I don't care how many times Jerry Jones get on TV and say we're a better team without. Nah, bro, you just traded away your best player. You traded away your best player. On top of that, offensive line took a hit. You got Zach Martin who also retired. This roster definitely took steps back. with trading Michael Parsons. They did add a George Pickens to the offense for the receivers. So basically, you got two number one receivers for Dak. CD Lamb and George over there. Still got a solid tight end. Um, this year is really going to be on Dak to go out here and go get it done. To me personally, Dallas look like they're stuck in the middle of the pack. And you just traded away a generational talent, the best player on your team. You trade him over to Green Bay, which helps out Green Bay a heck of a lot. But to me right now, the Cowboys are just middle of the pack. Last but not least, in the NFC East is the New York Giants. Um, Russell Wilson, look, he's just a placeholder for rookie Jackson Dart. He showed some flashes in the preseason. They got some exciting young weapons such as the Malik Neighbors over there. The Giants, the future's bright. They got Abdul Carter on the defensive side of the ball. He's like another Michael Parsons, like you dog. um, but for the Giants, it's just a matter of time of when Dart is going to get the keys to start up there in New York. All right, now let's head up to the NFC North. Where things could get real interesting. Starting off with the Detroit Lions. Look, the Lions went 15-2 last year, but they fell short. This roster is still loaded. You got Dan Campbell at the helm. Last year they was riddled by a ton of injuries. They actually was like my Super Bowl pick to come out of the NFC. I picked the Chiefs to win it all, but I picked them playing against like the Lions. But look, Detroit is definitely a real Super Bowl contender. Um, Aiden Hutchinson is back, so that defense is going to get back to it. Offense is definitely going to be healthy to start off the season. Week one against Green Bay is definitely going to tell us a lot. Speaking of the Packers, you know Green Bay Packers, they added Michael Parsons. Which really takes this defense to another level. Dude is a certified game wrecker. Um, Expectations are sky high right now for them. Just with that trade last week, that moved the Packers up into top five and like Super Bowl contenders according to Vegas. It's not about just winning the North, man. It's Super Bowl of bust in Green Bay. Moving across over here to Minnesota, we got the Vikings. Now look, last year, man, look, Sam Darnold, he shot everyone with the wins. But now in the future is JJ McCarthy. Look, his next start will be his first. But the talent is there for the Vikings, man. You got Justin Jefferson, you got Jordan Addison over there. They just made the trade last week for Adam Thielen to bring him back into the fold. You got TJ Hawkinson over there. You got Aaron Jones in the backfield running the ball. They have a good offense. Now, you know what I mean? If the defense can complement, which their defense is pretty solid too. Look, they dang sure can make some noise over there in the North. The talent is right there for him, but JJ McCarthy is going to ride on him. He's going to have to pick up the stuff fast, and let's see how he does. Last but not least, in the North, we got the Chicago Bears. Look, Caleb Williams got new weapons, a better offensive line. But it's just that this division is just stacked. The Bears, they may improve, but finishing higher than fourth in the division, that's going to be a tough order. Now look, now let's head down south to the NFC South. We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield has been steady. He's actually been balling. And Bucky Irvin is a breakout star in the backfield. The injuries last year to Chris Godwin and Tristan Wirfs, huge concerns for the Bucks. But the biggest issue is the defense. They gave up way too many big plays last year. But in this division, I still see them coming out of it. Their competition to me will be the Falcons in this division. But you got guys like Mike Evans still getting it done out here. You got Chris Godwin. Um, Look, they got some talent down there, and that defense. If that defense, can limit the big plays. Look, you could see Tampa Bay making some noise in January. Next up is Atlanta with the Falcons. Look, Michael Penix Jr. He showed some flashes last year. They got B. John Robinson leading the way. This team could be the team that pushed Tampa Bay in for this division. Michael Penix's development is going to be key. Next up, we got the Carolina Panthers. Um, Bryce Young, he has struggled to win on the road. And the Panthers, look, they opening up with 3 or 4 away from home. That's going to be rough on them. This team is young, and it's still a work in process. They're pretty fun to watch. Xavier Legette over there, and now you added Ted McMillan over the kid from Arizona. It's a nice one-two punch they got over there in Carolina. I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to look like this season. Last but not least, over here in the South, we got the New Orleans Saints. Look, they rolling the dice going with Spencer Rattler. He really hasn't convinced anyone that he's the answer. So unless the run game carries them, headlined by Alvin Kamara, the Saints could be staring at another 4-win season. And finally, we wrap things up with the NFC West, starting out with the San Francisco 49ers, Gold Rush. Look, a rebuilt defense under Robert Slay, Christian McCaffrey's health, is definitely a key for them. The wide receiving room is thin. I just saw that they had Kendrick Bourne out there for a visit. No telling if he's going to sign. He may be going to Washington. Who knows? And a slow start for this team is possible. This roster is still got the fight. And looking at the trade they made with the Commanders a few weeks ago, last week rather, with Brian Robinson Jr. going over there to the 49ers. Look, you pairing him with Christian McCaffrey in that backfield. That's the best 1-2 combination for running backs in the NFL, in my opinion. And it giving me that notion that Kyle Shanahan taking them pages from his father's book, and they just going to go run heavy. They already thin at wide receiver, so why not? If Christian McCaffrey's healthy, you got Brian Robinson back there as well. Why not just run a two-headed monster? Hey, let's go. Next up, we got the Los Angeles Rams. Look, Matthew Stafford health is a story. If he's on the field, the Rams are dangerous. Puka Nacua, hey, look, them dudes nice, man. They got an okay defense as well. Look, if Matthew Stafford is not healthy, the season could really unravel fast. Next up, we got the Seattle Seahawks. Year 2 with Mike McDonald. It's bringing some big change, man. Look, Sam Darnold, he could be the X factor. Why am I doing this? I don't know, but I don't believe in Sam Darnold. But you know what I mean. But look, he could be the X factor out there. If it all clicks. If it does click, Seattle, hey, look in that division, look, they could be back in the playoff mix. If not, then hey, look, front office, they could be in a world of trouble. Last but not least, out of the NFC West is the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray, has to prove he can win big games over there. The defense gotten better. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a star in the making. Boy, I wish the Patriots would have drafted him. But until Murray delivers, Arizona's going to stay stuck in that neutral position. Listen, and that's that. That's your 2025 NFL season preview, broken down division by division. The storylines are loaded. What will Micah Parsons do in Green Bay? How's the Cowboys going to rebound after trading away that? Can the Philadelphia Eagles repeat? Will the Kansas City Chiefs return to supreme dominance? Will we see the Baltimore Ravens, finally capture Lombardi trophy, or is it time in Buffalo? The pressure is high, and once again, the NFL is wide open. Stay locked in with Game Time with Hubb, because this season is going to be one for the books. Stay tuned for game predictions and everything week by week. We're going to get this thing off right. So until next time, man, look, it's your boy Hubb, man, and I'm out. Peace, and welcome back, football.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Game Time with Hubb. Make sure you like, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss Game Time action. See you next time.